Happening today, a story and a name you likely remember. A former Illinois police officer convicted of killing his third wife expected to appear in court today. A judge agreed to hear Drew Peterson's motion to vacate his conviction. Peterson sentenced to life in prison for murdering Kathleen Savio back in 2012. Now, he's also suspected of killing his fourth wife, Stacey Ann Peterson, whose body has never been found. Now his former attorney is speaking out, saying he might just start spilling secrets about the case no one has heard before. NewsNation's Ben Bradley has the exclusive interview.
A decade after a jury found Drew Peterson guilty in the death of his third wife, Kathleen Savio, Peterson's case is back in court this week, where a judge is reviewing his claim that his former attorney, Joel Brodsky, did not provide effective counsel. A lot has happened since the trial. Peterson had 40 more years tacked onto his sentence after being convicted of a plot to kill the prosecutor. And Peterson's one-time attorney had his law license suspended for unrelated conduct. And that is where our story begins. But you were never charged with a crime.
Never.
Never accused of taking a client's money.
Never.
And yet they benched you for 2 years.
In an interim base? Yeah.
These days, Joel Brodsky is a pariah of his profession. His law license suspended, his clients in limbo, his anger palpable.
I can understand the police taking a second look at everything, absolutely. I think the way wouldn't be doing their job if they didn't.
It's a far cry from his high-flying days next to his most infamous client.
The third wife.
Okay.
What happened?
Don't know. I don't know.
There were national TV interviews.
Can you understand why people watching at home, why people who hear you tell this story shake their heads and think he can't be telling the truth? It just doesn't make sense. Do you understand that?
I understand what people are thinking, of course, but it happens.
Constant coverage.
He says he believes that he helped you dispose of your wife's body.
Talk to my lawyer. I've got nothing to say about it.
No truth to it whatsoever.
None. Nobody helped me with anything. Such a marriage.
And a client who seemed to revel in the spotlight almost as much as his counsel.
I'm going to come camp myself in front of your house and see if you like it.
Brodsky lost Peterson's case. The former Bolingbrook police sergeant was convicted of killing his third wife, Kathleen Savio, and has been labeled the only suspect in the 2007 disappearance and likely murder of his fourth wife, Stacey, whose body has never been found.
Drew told you what happened to Stacey.
I know everything about both of his wives, everything.
And Brodsky says he is considering spilling his secrets.
He's never getting out of jail, so it's not going to hurt him. And
wouldn't you never practice law again?
Well, I don't think I'm ever practicing law again anyway, so what's the difference, right?
So why would Brodsky, after 37 years practicing law, consider betraying the fundamental principle of his profession? He says the answer is because the profession betrayed him. In 2019, the Illinois Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission suspended his law license for 2 years. The complaint said Brodsky sent an email to parties in a child custody case and school workers that called one parent very mentally sick. He was also accused in another case of a pattern in practice of unprofessional behavior, including false allegations and inappropriate diatribes and pleadings.
Do you regret your conduct?
I mean, yeah, I do.
Brodsky questions why he lost his license for 2 years when politicians like former House Speaker Mike Madigan and Alderman Ed Burke have kept theirs, despite being federally charged with using their public office to steer business to their private law practices. Alderman Burke's wife is also a justice on the Illinois Supreme Court, which oversees the agency that stripped Brodsky of his ability to practice law.
Decisions, rulings, opinions, are made based upon not what the facts are or what the law is, but are being done based upon who you are and who you know and what your financial connection to them are. And if that's, I don't want to get involved in that anymore.
Despite the fact Brodsky's 2-year suspension is technically up, he has not applied to have his law license reinstated.
It's almost like being, I don't want to get back into a dirty business, what I think is a dirty business.
You're telling me the guy who represented Drew Peterson is worried about getting dirty?
Well,
or feeling dirty?
He recognizes the irony, but says every client deserves a vigorous defense even Illinois' most infamous former cop.
I feel bad about what, Drew, still not taking responsibility and Stacy still being missing, that I'm thinking about maybe, revealing what happened to Stacy and where she is.
It would be the ultimate treachery, not just to Peterson, but also the legal profession.
I think it's despicable.
Former appellate judge Dave Erickson says in his decades-long legal career, he's never known a lawyer to so boldly threaten to break attorney-client privilege.
Whether you hate Drew Peterson, whether you think he's a murderer, a killer, or whatever it is, when he took that job, he assumed this fiduciary relationship with that man. And to break that breaks the very trust that this entire system of law should be based upon.
It's something that, weighs on my conscience.
A lawyer's conscience, a convicted killer's secret. Will the mystery of what happened to Stacy Peterson soon be solved?
I would never do anything that would hurt a former client, but he's in prison. He's never getting out. So if he was a man, he would say, okay, I'm done. Here's what happened, so that people can have the matter resolved and have closure.
And the reporter behind that story, that exclusive, Ben Bradley, joining us live right now to unpack the interview. First of all, good morning to you. How did you connect with Brodsky? Why do you think he was willing to talk to you?
Good morning to you, Adrienne. You couldn't be a reporter in Chicago 15 years ago without getting sucked into, unfortunately, the carnival that Stacy Peterson's disappearance became. We were out at the house, what started as, a missing suburban mom, quickly turned into neighbors telling us, well, her husband is a cop in that town, Bolingbrook, and his previous wife died under mysterious circumstances. In the weeks and months and years that followed, we would come to know Joel Brodsky as an equally verbose fighter for his client. They went on a national media tour, and I've remained in touch with him ever since. But yeah, I was surprised when, in the middle of what was a routine interview over his frustration over the intersection of power and politics in Chicago and how the politicians play an outside role in appointing judges and their influence in the legal community in Chicago, he said, and I'm so frustrated, and I may never practice law again, so I may just spill this secret. It's been weighing on my conscience.
What do you think? He revealed something to you off camera. He was very talkative on camera, but what did he say off camera?
Well, as we were, walking out of his condo overlooking Lake Michigan, I said, Joel, do you really have the goods? Do you really know? And he said, I could point police to Stacy as easy as that.
Wow. So he knows where the bodies are hid, according, again, to Brodsky. Have you spoken to these women's families or tried to speak with them?
Yeah, I spoke with Stacy Peterson's sister, Cassandra Kales, who has just spent the last 15 years keeping Stacy's name in the news, keeping her memory alive, and really fighting against Drew Peterson and all of the antics that he's pulled over the years. She is skeptical, but hopeful. She's had a lot of false leads, false hope over the years in this investigation. But when I told her what Brodsky told me, that he's thinking of betraying his client's trust and spilling the secret, she said, you know what, if he really cares about Stacy's family, if it's really weighing on his conscience, essentially don't tell a reporter, tell law enforcement.
Do you think he's going to drop the bombshell?
I think he's a frustrated guy who has little hope of practicing law again, even though his suspension is up. And I would be shocked if any lawyer betrayed that attorney-client privilege. But Joel Brodsky has surprised us at almost every step of this long ordeal.
Ben, thank you so much for your reporting and for bringing us that story.
You bet.
Wow. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click on the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.